Hello, LinkedIn. Welcome to a brand new show on the LinkedIn News India page, where we bring to you the news and views that really matter to you. I am your host, Abhigyan Chand, and I'm part of the LinkedIn News team in India. 2020 was an absolutely phenomenal year for fintech startups in India. Overall funding in fintech startups may have dropped by 50% to $1.4 billion, but as many as 3 fintech unicorns emerged. And the growth and momentum were visible across the spectrum, whether it was digital payments, online broking, or online banking. So, what's next for the rapidly growing fintech space in India in 2021 and beyond as we come out of the pandemic? Will we see some new and inventive business models emerge? For job seekers and professionals, what are going to be some of the really sought after skills and job roles? To talk to us about all this and more, we have with us Kunal Shah, a man who needs no introduction, the founder of Cred. Welcome to the show, Kunal, and really appreciate you taking out the time to talk to us today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a long while before I came again to LinkedIn. So thank you for having me again.
Yeah, almost 3.5 years ago when the LinkedIn studio was inaugurated in Bangalore, Kunal was actually the first guest. These are different times, so we are having to do this virtually. But members, we really hope that you enjoy every bit of it and it's as insightful as a normal studio conversation. Members who are joining us, members who are watching this is an interactive session. If you have any comments, if you have any questions for Kunal, you can put them in the comment section and we'll pop them up for Kunal to answer. If you have any insights to share with other members, do that. And let's try and make it as conversational and as two-way as possible. So Kunal, we are going to be talking about a bunch of topics today, including your own journey and the whole art of starting up. But before we go there, here is a look at some of your LinkedIn posts. If we could pull them up. So when and where does Kunal Shah get the inspiration to come up with these amazing one-liners that seem to go viral every single time?
When I write something on LinkedIn, I'm mostly just sharing notes that I write to myself. I am not really thinking about the idea of making something viral. I'm just sharing a thought, and I have a tendency to summarize an insight in the shortest possible manner. Uh, and sometimes it clicks, sometimes it makes sense to people, and therefore they can find it relatable, right? So I think I've learned this in, like, even in stand-up comedy, the reason we find something funny is because there is an insight that is shared and you're like, oh yes, I totally get it, I can totally relate to that, right? So I think insights are usually the smallest unit of truth that you can find it relatable or useful. So that's the summary of. But I wish I knew why it works.
Right. So basically, it's very spur of the moment, and you do it very spontaneously. That's great to know. We are already getting comments. Anuja Singh, hi Anuja, hi Yoga, hi Shriya, and we have a member who is actually watching this from Kenya. Hi Felix, thank you for joining
Wow.
us. We are going to be covering a lot of things today. So please keep your questions coming. Uh, and Anuja is already asking how the idea of Cred came to your mind. We are gonna talk about that later.
Mhm.
But for now, Kunal, we are now a year into the pandemic, right? So at Cred, what are you seeing, in terms of digital payments, consumer finance, and the whole money management by users? What are you really seeing there?
I think COVID acted as a catalyst in some ways to accelerate the growth on digital payments, or any digital consumption for that matter, right? Systematically, uh, we've noticed that all online platforms saw a significant surge, online payments saw a surge, credit cards saw a surge. So COVID actually almost like an acted like a catalyst which took us to future faster, right? Also, the general discomfort on using cash because you have to share something that somebody else has touched forced people to kind of adopt newer habits faster than we thought we could really get them to do it. And I think that was fascinating to think about, that we took so long them to get them to this point, and the next point came faster in days because uh, uh, the external factors for some of these things. What we saw is that there was an increased spends on shopping, increased spend on food. OTT platforms took off. People to do online courses. Travel category actually has taken off, and post lockdown, and people are traveling and doing staycations. I'm fairly certain as soon as the borders open and we will do international travel in a much bigger vengeance. I think it's almost like a revenge consumption that is happening, where all the suppression happened. But I would say that COVID acted as a way to accelerate some of these consumption habits to shift from offline to online. And many categories of products that people had not bought online, they started buying online. And they looks like they'll probably stay there. I believe that many of these behaviors are likely to stay. I don't know if kids will forever remain online to study. They will want to go to school and socialize and get better at many other aspects except just studies. But many things like work from home, I don't know if we are going to ever get back to 100% being in office again.
Right. So Kunal, I was actually going through some of the data that I had got from the team, and one of the things that really stood out was cautious indulgence was one of the things that Cred is seeing. So could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we're saying that consumers are spending, but they're spending on categories that can uh, really increase their chances of doing well. So they're spending on online courses, they're spending on buying more gadgets, technology, being able to do more video conference calls and other things. Uh, we see obviously travel is not as aggressively being spent. People are saving more. We also at Cred made sure that we announced to everybody that RBI moratorium is a bad idea, and one should not do this uh, because the interest rates on credit cards would not be waived off during the moratorium period. So we saw that people are indulging but being cautious because they're not sure if another pandemic wave would come. They may have challenges with their income or jobs because they have seen some of their friends or family members lose their jobs. So there is this fear of either a medical situation cropping up on spends or a situation where they may have an income loss, which is making them kind of cautious about it. But at the same time, we see revenge consumption. It's almost like a duality that seems to be exist right now.
That's insightful. We are getting a lot of comments, Kunal, and one of the comments that seems to appear again and again is your thoughts about Elon Musk, and we'll get to that also. But here's a question uh, from Pratik Tripathi, who is asking on the blockchain front, we have had enough hype of how the magic wand would wave and things would change. What skills shall a non-techie be acquiring to get into this space as an enthusiast? And I have an adjunct question to that. With this impending ban on Bitcoin, being mulled over. What's your take on this whole thing from a regulatory standpoint?
I wish I was competent enough to comment on this topic. My view is that every country will react different to these things, and the fact that something is banned or allowed is important enough, and one will not know how will this kind of things pan out. So it's very hard to comment on some of these things. But often we confuse Bitcoin and blockchain as the same thing. Blockchain is the technology through which Bitcoin uh, as a product exists, but the applications of blockchain may be widespread, and many industries will adopt it to create distributed ledger. Can you create real time authentication on many things, and so on and so forth. And the permanence of blockchain is what allows these things to kind of become more powerful, because you cannot really modify it. So the thing is that uh, how will these things pan out is very hard to predict. But if you are an enthusiast, which is kind of trying to do more things around that category, it's good to keep up to understand how some of these applications are changing. A lot of times, the hype is significantly more than the substance. So it's important to know the distance between the two. A lot of times, I have seen that people get excited because it's a new cool thing to do, but know very little substance about it. So I would really, really be careful about uh, just getting too excited about it because it seems to be the popular trend.
Yeah, yeah. So you would really caution people and retail investors from jumping onto this gravy train because you don't really know what awaits at the other end. That's helpful advice. But Kunal, going back to the question that Prateek asked, are there any particular skills? I mean, obviously you need to understand blockchain and be an expert at that. But are there any adjunct skills or skill sets that one should be especially cutting their teeth at?
Well, everything in technology is something worth paying attention to. I would say looking at applications of blockchain is probably a better thing to pay attention to versus just getting obsessed about Bitcoin and other things. There may be bigger and better things that might happen around smart contract, decentralized finance, and other trends. And expecting a shortcut to learn all of these things is a bad idea. So I would encourage everybody to spend some time researching this thing, read many people's point of views, study, read reports, all of that stuff, and make informed choices on what they should do about it. A lot of times I have seen that people just kind of uh, read one or two blogs and start opining about these things, and that may be not the ideal thing to do when you're trying to develop skills around this topic.
Absolutely. And just broadening this question a little bit more, Harsha BM is asking what skill sets are needed to survive in the finance industry, really. And it is also one of the questions that I had. We are in some very volatile times, right? Everything seems to be changing every few years. In the view of this volatility in general, what are some of the skills that people working at tech startups in particular should be really, really mindful of?
I think to survive any industry, you have to become very good at tech, because every industry is becoming a tech industry. And if you are not good at tech, it's very high chance that you will not be able to survive the thing. And a lot of people assume that being good at tech is about knowing how to code. That's not what I meant by being good at tech. It's about just being good at using technology to be more efficient at what you're doing, and constantly be on the forefront of discovering tools, techniques, methods to be more efficient at what you do. And unless and until you are on the forefront of that, the idea of getting obsolete is going to be relevant not just for individuals, but for companies and even nations. Will kind of get obsolete if they do not really adopt technology to do things more efficiently. We have recently heard about how RBI is even considering digital currency. And unless we are at the forefront of understanding what some of these changes mean, we are less likely to truly understand the impact of what it can have on our lives, and mostly get disrupted by that. So, long story short, I would say that be it financial services, for example, a lot of people don't know this, but in China, TikTok is actually a very large lending company. So people actually take loans on the TikTok app. And one would argue that, hey, how can a video time pass product result in a big financial services thing? Because we are not realizing that ultimately, when money is seamlessly available on APIs, even a platform which like TikTok can be actually a very large lender, because they have consumers' attention and time with them. So we have to break our mindset on or belief systems on what we think. Yeah, yeah, this is financial services and this is entertainment, and this is something else. all the sectors are merging. Is Amazon a video company or a courier company or book company? What is it? Or is it an AWS? So the companies of future where you will not see those lines anymore, and unless you are prepared for that, you are most likely going to get disrupted by it.
That's great advice. We are getting tons of comments, and hi Jaren, hi Ankit. Ankit seems to be commenting and engaging with us a lot. Thanks for that, Ankit. Manu and Aniket, thanks for your questions. Members who have joined us just now, we have with us Kunal Shah, who is the founder of Cred, and some of you may also know him from his FreeCharge days. And we are going to be talking about all things startup, all things all entrepreneurship, and everything fintech. Kunal, I was reading while doing the research for this show. I came across one of your posts where you mentioned that you had 25 ex-founders in your team. If we can pull up that post. And you're also known to hire people with a lot of creative abilities, stand-up comics, vloggers, performance artists. So could you tell us a little bit about that hiring approach and how that has helped you at Cred?
So these are disconnected topics. So we hire a lot of ex-founders because fortunately they have had the acceleration of experience that a lot of times corporate jobs don't give you, and give you a horizontal understanding of how things are possibly done. Uh, and they come with a lot of ownership mindset by design, and that's why they have chosen to not be in a standard job. They try to be founders. Sometimes they do not succeed, but that does not take away the ability of them knowing how ownership of as a culture works. So now we are probably around 40 ex-founders. From the last time we posted, we have added maybe 15, 20 more. And performance artists is another thesis that when you're building a consumer product, it's important to understand the DNA of what gets applause, right? So performance artists naturally understand what will make people applaud something, right? So when we have hired musicians or poets or stand-up comedians and all of these guys to come and work at the company, they naturally come with the instinct to impress the customer and not the boss. I have seen a lot of times corporate world get stuck by a lot of people who are mostly trying to impress the boss, but ultimately we are in the business of impressing the customers and getting their love, because if we get there, then the boss will anyways be happy.
That's a wonderful way to look at it, really, that they are not trying to pander to the bosses, but actually trying and make it worthwhile for the users. Great. Kunal, we are getting tons of questions. There is a question that we can't really not talk about, and Bharat Reddy is asking for an opinion on the whole GameStop episode, and if you have anything to say on that.
I don't really understand what happened, but I think it's important to understand that we are living in a society that is hyper connected, and a hyper connected society can come together and do extraordinary things. And extraordinary things do not need to be logical in nature, right? Sometimes it can be freaky, it can be weird, it can be illogical, it can be irrational, but internet has allowed a large group of people to come together and do something which is interesting and scary at the same time. Because if these people got together, they can actually create revolutions and even change the way a country is led. And it can also mean that it can do something as crazy as what happened with GameStop. The key lesson over here is the ability for humans to cooperate at such large scale on internet with complete strangers is the bigger lesson to take over here versus worrying about what exactly happened in the stock market.
That's wonderful. We have another question from Patipaban Chaudhary, sorry for mispronouncing that, who wants to understand if CRED plans to launch any online educational course for credit management behavior. I know that you have a lot of emphasis on promoting the right kind of financial habits, and he's saying that I would prefer to learn from CRED rather than any other online platform. So is that something on the cards, Kunal?
We do believe that we need. So we've realized after running CRED that financial literacy is actually a very, very big issue in the country, and very few people seem to have really understood what it means to be financially literate. And there is no connection to people's income and their financial literacy, is what we have observed. Even people who are making 1 crore salary don't know what is the interest on the credit card, which is crazy to think about, right? And if this is true, we do believe that we have to embark on the mission of creating financial literacy. So we are thinking on all fronts. The idea is to not charge for this content, but make it more engaging for people to really understand these things. So in 2021, we are going to embark on multiple initiatives, be it for credit card customers or for country at large, to engage and get the concepts of financial literacy completely understood. Because seems like this part has completely gone missing from our education system. We've never been taught what is financial literacy, and we figured out how to make money, but we've not understood how money works.
So Prashant Shah has a suggestion for promoting financial awareness, everyone, and he's asking if you think gamification can help people learn financial literacy better. Because, I mean, let's face it, personal finance is boring as hell. No one really wants to talk about insurance or learn about taxes. We do that only when we are pushed to the wall, really, on the 15th of January every year. But do you think that there is scope to gamify this whole process?
I think we tend to use these words again very loosely, gamification and all the stuff. The key point to make over here is that anything that is boring, if it's made interesting, then we would be interested in that topic. And this is true for anything that we studied. If you look at our school and colleges, all the professors who were actually entertaining in nature when they taught us topic, we actually liked the topic more, and not the boring professors and the boring teachers, right? So the concept is not about gamification, but the concept is that can you make something entertaining and interesting to learn, and not boring, versus gamification being the only tool to achieve that. There can be many other ways. You can actually teach financial literacy through stand-up comedy. And that may be something that we may attempt.
Okay, awesome. We are getting quite a few comments. Fadi Prasad is asking, you have always said that CRED can unlock a lot of opportunities to be more helpful to users. What's next for CRED? Shrikar Parashar is asking, what are the plans to make CRED coins more interoperable? Some of these seem to be very company-specific questions, but we are also getting a lot of... Indra Adhikari is asking, why can't India have world leaders like Satya and other CEOs? And I think what Indra is essentially trying to get at is the fact that why are we not good at retaining some of the top talent that gets exported?
The question is that do we create disproportionate opportunities for them over here, right? I don't think the country has truly understand the idea of respecting people who can create wealth, and we almost somewhat demonize people who create wealth, which is a problematic thing. And this is where our socialist versus capitalist mindset has not been adjusted. In fact, I can tell you with confidence that 100% of Indians have not even read for more than 1 hour between difference between socialism and capitalism. So the question is that if we do not understand that, anybody who wishes to do well in life will probably choose to leave this country, because fundamentally the wiring is not there for capitalism yet. And therefore we constantly have brain drain, because the opportunities in other markets which respect and worship capitalism tend to keep doing better. And my biggest worry for the country as well is that we are not making life of people and the weird situation over here. For example, let's take a situation of a state like Karnataka. Let's say a very small percentage of people would be contributing to the taxes, but the taxes have to be used for significantly majority of people, and therefore naturally the quality of life that you can create for people who are slightly more wealthy or paying taxes is not going to be able to be changed quickly. The roads are all broken in affluent neighborhoods, uh, and because you do not have the budgets to take care of the entire market, uh, as well as the affluent neighborhoods, and therefore the money distribution forces. And this is the classic problem of where do you get your votes from? Because the percentage of people who pay taxes are always a minority when it comes to driving politics in some ways. So systematically, the country is going to always find it hard to retain wealthy people because the country is driven through solving for everybody. But the thing is that if you're going to constantly lose wealthy people of this country, then we'll remain poor because their consumption will go to other countries. For example, if we do not really solve our tourism, then more and more people will travel abroad and all the tourism money will go abroad as well. So this is something that we should think about, and more people, if they realize it, they will demand it and change. Uh, and we feel happy when an Indian gets hired to a global company, but we forget that none of that benefit is coming to India. Neither their income, neither their wealth, neither their wisdom is going to come to India.
Right. Kunal, you spoke about the importance of hiring people with some creative abilities. Because there is that extra X factor. There is that extra that they bring to the table. Really, I mean, you are yourself a tech founder without an engineering degree, right? So, how did your philosophy major really help you in building products, building businesses? And we know that you have built them by the dozen. And would you recommend it to engineering? A lot of engineering students must be watching this. Would you really recommend to them that they should really get out of their comfort zone, which is numbers and maths, and look at some of these adjunct fields that can really help them in the long run?
See, if you think about it, every business is actually in the business of changing human behavior, right? And if every business is the business of changing human behavior, uh, how can we not be good at human behavior? How many people have even read one book on what is human behavior? And then how do we expect to be doing well in our career? How do we expect ourselves to be doing good in our relationships? How do we expect ourselves to do a good at job or marketing or advertising or product when we fundamentally don't understand how human behavior works? And therefore, India has struggled to create products that the world uses systematically because we fundamentally struggle with human behavior. I believe that we need to be much more well-rounded in our learning. So you cannot expect that somebody who run philosophy cannot understand tech, or somebody who understand tech cannot understand psychology. And to be successful in the times ahead, we will need you to be a T-shaped personality. A T-shaped personality means very simple. You are deep on one field, but you have a very strong horizontal capabilities and understanding of things. And unless you are a T-shaped personality, the chance of you being successful in the future is going to be becoming weaker and weaker.
So it's going to be really crucial as we go forward. Do you think it's an opportune time for students, especially, to be looking at I saw one of your interactions recently after the budget where you said that you should be looking at creating jobs, not just having one. And do you think with the volatility, with the in the backdrop of the volatility that we have right now, just pinning your hopes onto a job sounds like putting all your eggs in one basket. So do you think this is an opportune time for students, especially, to be looking at startups as a career option?
I truly believe that if students do some version of startup in their college days, they will truly understand how human behavior works, sales works, marketing works, money works, profit and loss works, balance sheet works, capital works, fundraise works, customer works. And even if there's even if they fail, during the startup, doing the startup in college, they will actually be an extraordinary employee even after that. So I believe that if we really want to become prosperous nation, and that's a question we need to ask, do we want to become a prosperous nation? Then we need more job creators and less job seekers. And if the smartest of the country do not choose to become the job creators of this country, then we have a very scary future ahead of us.
Okay, that's great. At this point, let me just reintroduce this topic to our members who are watching us. We have with us the one and only Kunal Shah, founder of Cred, a serial entrepreneur who is fielding all sorts of questions on startups, entrepreneurship, and the future of fintech and the tech industry. Ankit Lohia is very persistent, in his question about your thoughts on Elon Musk. So I guess we have to really come to that.
I think a lot of times people get obsessed with the end state of Elon Musk. Oh, he's this guy on Twitter, he's running so many companies, all of that. I don't think even 1% of people have actually studied what is the reason Elon Musk the way Elon Musk is, and what is his journey. What are the building blocks to become Elon Musk? So it's like, no, we obsessed about somebody like Shah Rukh Khan and say, "Arey, kya badhiya hai," but we do not know what is making of Shah Rukh Khan. So I would highly encourage people to say that, obsess about how did Elon Musk become Elon Musk? How did Amazon become Amazon? How did Google become Google? How did Facebook become Facebook? Versus the end state. Yaar, dekho, yaar, ye $1 trillion company, or oh, he's the richest person in the world. And we have always obsessed about the richest person in the world. We have never obsessed about what makes somebody really rich.
Okay, that's wonderful to hear, Kunal. I have another question for you, and this is a question that a lot of people in the early days of their enterprise face. If you could also share some anecdotes from the way you went about solving this problem of acquiring the first 1,000 users. And I have another question related to funding, which I'll talk about later.
At Cred, fortunately, because of my social media, we were able to just get 1,000 customers just from my social media presence. So I think second time founders have the advantage of building an audience for themselves. And any founder that manages to create their own audience can get their early customers just from their own following. And I think I would encourage many founders to kind of spend time in building their own personal brand, because ultimately you will need people to believe in the person behind the company before they believe the company. And unless that is going to be done actively, you're a first-time founder, it's sometimes it's actually recommended that you do the harder approach of getting 1,000 customers versus doing, let's say, a Google ad or a Facebook ad, because you will never learn what the customer wants. So I would highly encourage to even call the first 1,000 customers and convert them, or sell them your product at a college or at an office somewhere, and actually interact with the 1,000 customers if you really want to be successful. A lot of people are lazy to just say, "Acha, ek kaam karte hain, Google ad laga denge, first 1,000 customer aa jayenge." That's never a good idea to build your company, because you will never get the insights on what makes people like your product, dislike your product, or why you fail, or why you're successful. If you do not understand that, then you'll keep making the mistakes.
That's some very useful advice. It's the blood and toil really that matters when it comes to acquiring the first 1,000 users or 10,000 users, and shortcuts don't really help. And the second question that I had, Kunal, was, you have obviously chaired the Internet and Mobile Association of India. You have been an advisor to Sequoia, Bennett and Coleman, and also Y Combinator. And you have obviously mentored and invested in 80 odd startups. When it comes to writing a check, what's the one thing that Kunal Shah is looking for in a startup and the team?
I usually only invest in companies now that come from a strong reference, right? Where somebody who I trust and respect says that Kunal, this guy you should invest, and I'm also investing. I usually try to not look for any other things. And the second thing is that I look for is that do they understand their sector very deeply? Do they have sharp insights about the problem they're going after? I think those are the two things that I solve for. The rest of the stuff is just startup is never a lucky thing, and 90% of startup investments fail. So one can really not hope for any magic to happen over here.
Any qualities that you look for in the founder and the founding team?
What has been the struggle, right? People who have done well despite poor situation, poor circumstances tend to do better later on as well. If they have had a privileged journey, they tend to be not designed to work as hard as you think they should be.
Awesome. We are getting a question from Ali Asgar Bhopalwala. And I know that there has been a lot of chatter about Cred's business model over the last few months, and you have also been very clear about what the business model is. But if you can just answer that question from Ali Asgar, is Cred a lending company, which I don't think it is right now, or a SaaS company? Kunal Shah, your thoughts. So where exactly is the business model now, Kunal, and what are the things that you're potentially looking at over the next couple of years?
Cred is a company that is managing to get a certain set of customers through a particular tool, which acts like SaaS, and then allows merchants and banks to cross-sell their products on the platform. It could be lending, it could be cards, it could be any other product that financial services may have, or any product that merchants have. So basically, it's a simple company that is allowing a curated set of customers to meet with curated set of banking and financial institutions and merchants to interact with each other. And we basically facilitated this particular transaction and create value for every party involved.
I guess Ali Asgar would have got some clarity on that. Kunal, we are almost at time, but let me squeeze in one final question. Which skills really, and if you were to point out 2 or 3 skills or some job roles that are likely to be in demand at tech startups over the next couple of years, that people and both emerging professionals and mid-level professionals would do well to keep in mind?
People who can create. It doesn't matter what they can create. Creators are going to be more in demand versus managers. And if you are in position to create anything, it's going to be valuable. If you do not have a ownership mindset and a founder level thinking, and if you cannot think like a CEO, no matter what role you do, you're not going to be successful. So I would say it doesn't matter what role do you have the ability to think like a CEO?
The ability to think like a CEO and a constant focus on creation. That's the word coming in from Kunal Shah. At this point, we are out of time. And Kunal, I would really thank you for making the time to appear on the show. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. Bye-bye.
Bye. So that was Kunal Shah, the founder of Cred, and we spoke about a bunch of topics from entrepreneurship and the whole art of starting up to the skills and roles that are going to be in demand. Keep following the LinkedIn news page for more such interviews with founders and industry stalwarts, and also for regular news updates. Have a good day.